I want to hear from the very start. So I don't know much about this other than what I've seen, right. And I see you've been giving away stuff like crazy. You gave away a golf cart.
We didn't give it away. We sold. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're selling golf carts.
Correct.
All right. So you started, and you said that you had all kinds of issues getting this thing going.
Correct.
Yeah. So take me from the start of this. So you decide to have a bit. Tell me why. Even go that far back. Why are we doing this? Successful doctor, decides to take on this other project, side hustle here. I guess you could call it. Would you call it a side hustle?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-huh.
It's a great question. Why did I do it?
Yeah.
I'm not for sure.
I haven't talked to you.
Yeah, I know. My daughter Caroline played golf, and she had been living in Cleveland playing hockey and decided that she was done playing hockey because of the travel, and she wanted to move back home. And so she moved back home, and she had started playing golf a little bit while she was still in Cleveland and really enjoyed it. And I thought, well, that's something we could do the last couple of years of high school. And so we kind of got involved with it there. And I noticed that Ross County, for such a popular sport that everybody can do up until you can't walk anymore, we're golf poor in Southern Ohio, meaning there's just not a lot of facilities. And with the tremendous weather that we have in Ohio, it's a challenge for kids, especially youth, to be able to practice during the off season and work on their game. And so if you don't live in Southwest Florida or Georgia or Arizona, it's a real difficult thing to try to maintain your game or even improve during the off season, year over year. So I'm really passionate about kids. I've got a whole slew of them.
Well, you guys have 5?
We have 5 of our own, and then we have another gal that moved in with us that we enjoy having around. So we love big families, and when I'd go watch golf as a golf parent, I always really enjoyed going and watching the tournaments, and I always rooted for all kids. It's a very different sport as compared to everything else. While you're competing against others, you're still rooting for the other kids to do well. And I just felt it was an opportunity for us to provide something in Southern Ohio that people might like, and then even adults, to come out. And
so it wasn't like a one day you were like, that's it, where I'm going to do, like you didn't have like one of those aha moments, did you, or was this brewing for a while?
Yeah, it was just something that I was brewing for a while. And then Caroline's golf coach, he and I chatted about what the opportunities may be. And we felt like we could add something. And so that's kind of how the conversation started. And we were initially going to put it in Chillicothe at a gym location, otherwise known as AP Prep.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some issues that was really out of a lot of people's control, and it couldn't go there. So Jenny and I are scrambling. We're trying to figure out,
because it was kind of in the works, wasn't it?
It was in the works. The word was out. We already had tremendous buzz. Signage. Yeah, we had branding, a logo. And so I almost felt like I couldn't go back.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back on that now, it was kind of silly, but that's the pressure I felt. And so one morning I woke her up like at 6 a.m. I was getting ready to go to work. I said, hey, throw your clothes on. We're going to go take a drive. And we literally drove down to one end of our farm. And I said, what do you think about, we'll build a pole barn structure. We'll put it in here. And over time, it actually was almost a silver lining that it didn't work out to go in Chillicothe, because we've added a range to our facilities, which we really needed to add to the business.
Mm-hmm.
Just another source of revenue.
Another spot for people.
Yep.
If you're a simulator, so for people that don't know, the golf barn is a golf simulator.
Correct. We have 2 simulators. We have a chip putt green that was put in by Southwest Greens out of Hilliard, Ohio. They're also in Florida. Has undulation, has a real break to it. A really, really nice green. I mean, that's one of the things I do most is just putt on the green. And then we sell golf carts, street legal golf carts. We're going to obtain a liquor license. We're going to have a small bar. I'm hoping it kind of transitions into maybe like a weekend hangout. We've thought about maybe having live music maybe in the summer and fall. It's a very rural setting, but it's very beautiful. And just kind of be off the beaten path. It won't be the typical hangout in a downtown area.
Yeah. So you were telling me when we talked maybe a month or so ago now, what were some of the big issues that you saw with opening up? Because you and I were talking, I mean, my thoughts on this is Dr. Sever. This is a man with plenty of means. This is a man that has the brain power. So tell me about opening a business in Ohio right now.
I was humbled.
That's the word you have for it. You were humbled. Yeah. Tell me about that, because I've kind of went through that some. I've been a part of some projects in the past, and obviously I own this building downtown, so I have to pay attention. I really haven't got into a construction aspect that would bring upon permits and that type of thing. I've never changed anything. I've painted, done some stuff like that. But so tell me about that process, and like maybe some of the struggles that you could possibly help people with that are trying to open up some sort of retail. Because is this classified as retail? Is this active sports activity? I mean, how's that kind of work?
It's commercial retail, and because we have a potential for a bar, it changed the code on the building a bit.
How?
Just the amount of occupancy that we may have. It changes sewer regulations with the EPA as far as how many people you may have in and out of there.
Just because you want to sell alcohol?
It gets in more to the occupancy as far as what the person load will be in the building at any one time.
Did selling alcohol enabled you to increase your occupancy or decrease?
No, it didn't. It didn't change the occupancy any. What it does is it just changed the code they apply to the building. And so
different set of rules.
Yeah. If you take a gym, for example, and that's the only thing I got to really go off of, it would be coded differently than to something that could have potentially for alcohol sales or food sales. Okay. So, and this was all new to me. I mean, it was an education in of itself.
Is this your first business?
First business, yeah. I mean, I've been an employed physician for 21 years now.
Yeah.
And while I've always been very involved in how to build the actual practice, name recognition, branding of what I do to bring patients to the organization I work for, at the end of the day, I'm still not responsible for the day-to-day business runnings.
Light bulbs.
Right.
That type of thing.
And I did grain farm for about 10 years. And so I ran a little quasi business there, but
not the same.
Not the same.
Not retail.
I didn't have people on W-2s and paying taxes to the state on the employees and things of that nature. So it's been a real learning experience. And, my wife, Jenny, she does a big share of the work as far as the day-to-day operations of it. Mm-hmm. So it is really a team sport. But obtaining permits, we own the farm, so I didn't have to purchase the land, but just getting the permits to get the building up, going through the EPA, the process of getting...
So even out in the rural area, you had to get permits?
Yes.
Really? I don't think they do that in Jackson. Well, they probably do if it's a certain size, I'd say. I think you're allowed up to a certain amount for nothing.
Really?
Maybe that's only if it's portable, like a shed that's just on blocks or something. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, and Ross County, we have a Ross County building department. We had inspectors that came out and inspected us during the process.
Only because it's going to be commercial, though.
Correct.
If you're building that as your farm building, you just throw it up on a weekend and be done with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And due to that, it really slowed down the pace of the building. I mean, we still moved pretty quickly. We broke ground on, I think, October 18th, and our first day we were open would have been January 6th, but we had a snowstorm, so we didn't open until January 7th. So, we were in it
fairly quick.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
But we were pushing the envelope, and we had a lot of help from contractors and local people that we knew that, did a bang up job on it. I'm really, really excited about how the facility turned out, but I was humbled, and I have a newfound respect for small business owners.
Give me the 30,000 foot view. Why is that? Just because of having to learn all that stuff and then manage it? Or, I mean, what was the biggest shock to you?
I think, yeah, trying to learn all the permitting, what the hoops you got to jump through in order to be a commercial business. But then when you get to the finance part, we were delayed in opening. We were supposed to be open in September at our original location. And here we had a 3 or 4 month delay, which is 3 or 4 months of revenue. It's 3 or 4 months of having people on the payroll. So the bills start to add up pretty quickly. And so you feel this pressure and urgency to get open so you can start generating some revenue.
Cash flow back. Yeah.
And the whole cash flow thing has been a real learning experience for Jenny and I. It's no small task. And I think you and I were chatting offline, and you had made the comment, and nobody had ever told me this, but I think you're absolutely correct, that if you didn't have 2 years saved of what the overall operating revenue would be for the business prior to starting, you probably shouldn't do it. And I don't think that's bad advice.
People don't understand that you are not going to automatically go in and start making money. And that doesn't mean that you are not going to cash flow day one, okay? Because you will. You open up the doors. If you've done your due diligence, you're going to cash flow. However, look at the cash flow, how that cash flow has to outrun the initial dump of money. Like just take you, for example, that 3 or 4 months of spend. And this isn't $5 and $10.
No.
This is, whenever, especially, you erected a building. Now you got to buy simulators. Now you got to buy, the flooring, the interior, everything that goes into this thing. So, I mean, we won't have to talk about direct numbers, but I'd say you're well into the 6 figures, I'd say. Just, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty easy assumption.
Right.
And I mean, whenever you're talking about a cash flow business that is going to recoup back gross $1,500, $2,000 a day on a great day, because I mean, it's Southern Ohio, right? I mean, there's only so many people, and there's only going to be so many, you could do 100% occupancy and you'll know what your thing is, right? And that's hard to outrun your day to day and recoup what you went back. So I would say comfortably, I've always thought, just from my time in business, 2 to 3 years before you make a penny, before you turn a positive profit. And that's if you've got a really good business.
Yeah.
I mean, typically you'd be 5, 6, 7,
Oh, easy. I mean, I kind of look at this. This is going to be probably a 5 to 7, maybe a 7 to 10 year marathon, to where you're starting to get over the hump, make some money. You got to put money back into the business, right? You're going to have improvements or upgrades or just upkeep to the overall plan. So, and my problem, my wife and I have talked about this a good bit. I like nice things. So it goes against the grain of my fabric to put something up that looks rinky dinky. I just can't do it. I'm super happy with the way the building turned out, but it costs money to look nice.
Yeah. You got to be super okay with that ding in your wallet.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And we had to dump just available cash that we had to us into this business. And that's that's probably where I have the most respect for small business. I do okay in my primary job, but I'll tell you what, without my primary job, there's no way we could have survived.
Yeah. Let's say that you had been laid off from, a factory, and you said, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to suck out my 401k and I'm going to do this.
God love you.
I mean, I just want to go put my arm around those people.
Absolutely.
And say, hey, let's take a step back here. Just let's, pencil this thing out, and does it work? Do you think you would have been ahead to maybe rent in the beginning? I mean, was all of your expense the facility? Or did you learn that lesson that you were going to have to upgrade no matter what if you rented? I mean, you would have had build out cost?
We didn't really have a lot of build out cost in the beginning. But there's a trade-off, because in the original location, we would not have had the range. And what we found is, we opened in January, and we did pretty well as far as sim rental goes. But I've learned a lot as far as what the cash flows are. Our sim rental business is going to be, I don't want to say a small percentage,
20%,
probably, if that.
Yeah.
You got to have multiple other revenue streams to make it. And so we would not have had that at our original location. So now we're going to add the range in. You know, a lot of people just love to come out for the serenity and just beat balls and be by themselves outside. And so I think we're going to get a lot of range play, which will be nice. And the range is going to be spectacular. But without that, I don't think we ever could have cash flowed. And that was something I thought about before, and I thought we could make it, and I was dead wrong. There's so many assumptions you have to go through. We went through probably 3 months of business planning with a small business through the small business. What do they call that? Through
Economic development.
Yeah, the SBA.
Okay,
I can't remember
Small Business Association.
Yeah. So we actually had a guy walk through us, and we did all the assumptions. What's the build out's going to cost? There's so many hidden costs you don't know about. It's really life altering when you do it.
I know. I'll have people call me and they'll start rattling off. Well, you know, it only costs this. I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. You got to pay for toilet paper. You got to pay for cleaning supplies. You got to pay for, you know, the grass. You know, you got to pay for the salt. You got to pay for the shovel to clean your sidewalk. You know, it's not you just don't grab yours from home and take that over there, right? Like, you know, there's just so many hidden costs that are just, and let's say, that, well, it's not that much. Well, okay, let's just say it's $100, but also it's one of those days where nobody shows up. So now you've went backwards.
Oh, I mean, you know, we opened on January 7th, and I was super excited from the time we started construction till the day we opened. And I don't know what changed, but there was a switch that flipped on the night of the 7th. I didn't sleep for 6 weeks thereafter. I was so anxious about
who's coming.
Is anybody going to be there tomorrow?
Did they enjoy it?
Can we make it?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, the money part of it, I mean, it would really sting for us to, you know, have to shut the doors and spend all this money and not make our money back. It would really sting, but I think more than anything, it would hurt me that we didn't make it.
Yeah.
You know, it was the fact that you failed. That's what worries me more than anything else is failure.
You know, I walked away from a business after almost 20 years, right? I mean, just recently within the last couple of years. And, you know, I've never thought for 1 second that it failed. I've thought that it was time to move on.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that in all businesses, like, you know, and I see this with friends of mine and just people uptown, there's a fine line between you believing that it failed and maybe you're just at capacity and you might need a little bit more out of it than what it can give in order to be happy doing it.
Great point.
And you know, like you were talking 7 to 10 years, you know, I know you, right? And the only worry I would have for you is that you might get burnt out by then.
Sure.
Or pick up another hobby or, you know, and I mean, that's the only bad thing about hobby businesses. You know, they'll kind of suck the fun right out of it for you. Right. When's the last time you got to golf?
Well, I mean, I go down and chip and putt, but as far as going down and like playing 9 or 18 on the Sims during the winter, haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Now,
you may never again.
Maybe not, but I will tell you that Jenny and I go down there almost every night, if not every night, probably 5 out of 7 nights, and we're cleaning.
Yeah, you're around it.
We're sweeping and picking up and make sure the place looks presentable.
And then you're going home and thinking about it and talking about it.
Yeah.
When my wife and I were in the restaurant/bar business there for a little while, man, it just consumed us. Then every time you went to a restaurant, you know, we're looking at the menu, and I'm sure you're that same way. You know, you're looking at different places and what are they doing and how can I add that? And, you know, it's just, it'll drive you insane, partner. Because you're like me. I mean, once, you know, if you're in, you're in.
You're in, right. Yeah. And at this point,
you're in.
You're in. There is no going back, right?
Yeah.
I had a customer come in, I don't know, it's probably been 3 weeks or so ago, and he said, man, this place is really nice. I love it. I said, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I said, you know, just looking at it, what would you change just for the customer experience? He said, well, I was at another place, I think it was in Columbus, and rather than having to go get your ball and put it down on the mat and hit it the next time, they got this thing that just kind of puts another ball out there for you. I don't know what that would cost, but he said, that'd be really cool. I said, yeah, that ain't happening.
Yeah, what's that? 60,000. Yeah. So yeah, you can put your ball down. Yeah. Dude, you're going to find, you know, it's great that you asked that question, but you're also going to find that about everybody through the door is going to tell you how to run your business.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. You're probably already seeing that. Yeah. And that gets tiresome. You know, I mean, that'll wear on you a little bit. But, you know, that's why I say don't let yourself get burnt out, you know. Have your schedule. You know, I learned a lot. I had some buddies of mine years ago that owned gas stations. And I've always looked up to this family, right? The Wolfords is who they are. And they own some gas stations, Chillicothe even. I worked for them, great people. What I learned from them in business is they showed up every day at the exact same time. They typically left about the exact same time. They came in and they did their role in their amount of time, that whatever it took them, okay? And then they left. They weren't living in there. And I always thought that was just a beautiful way of doing it, because they came in, they did what they needed to do, and what they needed to do was make sure that you did what you needed to do yesterday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know, I got real guilty in my own business of just living in it, right? And I've always tried to go back and think of those guys, because they had a pretty good life, right? I'm not saying it didn't work, but they did whatever they wanted to. They had their time. You know, they knew by a certain time of day their work was over. Now, they might go in and work from 5 to 9 in the morning, but after that, they pretty well had their day. They'd go golfing. They could, you know, enjoy the fruits of what they'd built. And, you know, if you find yourself living in those things, you know, kind of like it sounds like you're starting to do, you know, maybe set a goal of like, hey, by the end of the first year, I'm going to be down to this time, and that's what I'm going to check this business. Otherwise, dude, you're going to go crazy. Like it's going to, you probably aren't working out, and you love to work out. Or have you been doing any of that stuff?
Well, the business, I'm not sure, has impeded that more so than just the kids.
Yeah.
You know, trying to manage them, get them to sporting activities and things of that nature. But, you know, we've tried to get back at it. We haven't done a great job.
Yeah, it's tough.
There's just not enough hours in the day.
And you see how what you've done, it's just that then now you're not doing that, and you love doing that, and then that's just adding to the fire.
Right. And not only that, the range care, you know, for cash flows right now, we don't have a lot of expendable cash to just go hire another body to do it. So, you know, Jenny and I are now going to be the range boss, you know.
Yeah.
We're going to be running the ball pickers and and doing the mowing and the upkeep and things like that. Well, we got a couple kids in mind that will be fast out running equipment, and they'll be able to do some of that, but there's some of it we're going to have to pitch in and do ourselves.
Well, heck, you know, you can trade, you know, free range for, you know, maybe a day of mowers.
Yeah, if they play golf.
Yeah. But I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. What was the cost like of all these permits and codes? Like unexpectedly, I don't, you know, share whatever you'd like to share, but like unexpectedly, how much of the total revenue or total budget of this project was unexpected cost of permit and codes? Because listen, you're a doctor, right? I mean, you are obviously smart enough to lay out, okay, here's where my building cost is going to be, here's this, but how much like unexpected, out of the blue shock cost came to you compared to when you first started?
Well, great question. And, you know, without getting political, I have a newfound respect for smaller government.
What do you mean by smaller government?
The amount of regulation that it is required for a commercial business essentially chokes the life out of it. And I'll just give you an example. And I'm not going to name any names as far as, you know, who did what, but as far as a contractor, certain things had to be state licensed. And the state licensed person would come in and do a fine job, but I might be able to do the same job for a tenth of the cost. And a friend of mine put in some an apparatus in the barn initially, or at the golf barn, and between me paying him and our supplies, we had about $1,700 in it. Well, I was then told by an inspector that won't fly. You have to have a state licensed person, and it went from being $1,500 to $1,700 to $21,000. So those are the kind of things that now all of a sudden, you know, my budget just took a $19,000 hit.
92%.
Because I wasn't aware of that. And the coding on the commercial building it probably cost us, I'm going to say, probably an additional $175,000 to $225,000 extra. Rather, if I'd have just gone out and just built it for myself, I probably could have built it for half.
Well, and then you think about the rent aspect of it. How many months of rent could you have got out of just that?
Right.
You know.
And here's the thing. I'm not going to tell you that I'm a business guru by all. I'm learning, but even at the end of this, I'm not going to be a business genius. But the building itself, it's got a lease payment to it, right? We're not paying a lease payment on that property right now. The land we already owned. The building, we took cash out of some accounts,
personal money. Yeah,
got it built, but that should pay. It has a payback. That business should pay me back. And right now, we can't afford the cash flows to do it.
And so you've essentially turned into your own bank.
Yes.
Okay. And so now let's say that you would have not been your own bank and you'd had to go ask for that money, and you tell the bank, hey, we're not in a situation where we can pay back our loan just yet. Will you float me for 12 months?
Yes.
And I know that gets done. You can pull some pretty unique deals off with banks and lenders of so to speak, but that's not an easy task. I mean, whenever you tell a bank, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay you for a year, they tend to not really want to give you money.
Oh, right up. Well, and I'll tell you, we put down a significant amount of money, and we have cash available. We had to give them all of our finance, but we went through the SBA. Holy cow, what a process that was. The application of itself. I wouldn't even, if you told me, hey, Bill, you can open another business, I guarantee you it's success, but you got to fill out another SBA application, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It was too, Jenny and I don't know how many hours we had. It probably better than 200, maybe 250 hours in the application itself.
Just the application.
Just the application.
Yeah.
But the first bank that looked at it, they turned us down. They just said, yeah, we just don't think your population's affluent enough, which was interesting to me.
So they did a market study, or they thought they did?
They thought they did. They didn't understand the business as well. And then we got a local bank. I'll put a plug out there for Alan Helburn and Kingston National Bank. I mean, they, great people. I banked with them now for 25 years.
Well, they put their money on you, not statistics.
Probably.
Yeah.
But, just a superior community bank that really helped us, local in Ross County.
So a big chain bank then basically told you, I don't know if it was a big chain, but they said, hey, we don't think that this is a business we're not willing to help you here.
Right. And because of a personal relationship and, that being local, they knew that I had another source of revenue that, wasn't going to necessarily go under, if you will.
Yeah.
That, they felt comfortable in helping us.
Oh yeah. They've looked at everything.
Yes.
The people, it's not just a matter of going to the bank. Like, not only do you have to go to the bank, but then you have to be good enough that you have records from 3 to 5 years of history, detailed records of 3 to 5 years of history. Like it's no joke, and you just wonder, kind of, not to get political, but how they're trying to clean up government waste right here. Not only government waste, but like, think of the stresses that puts on. It's a waste, just like how your cost went from $1,700 to $21,000. But think of the unwanted stress, deal-breaking dollars that they inflict upon everyone.
And absolutely. And I heard President Trump talk not long ago. I think it may have been his address to Congress about a month ago, and talked about small business being the backbone of America. And that's great to think. I think most of us think about the Fords and GMs and Procter & Gamble and Kraft and those type of, huge brands. And now, of course, you get into tech with Google and Facebook about being just huge corporations to manage or to generate jobs and and other revenues for a lot of middle-class families. But small business is really where it's at. And I think if the government could deregulate some of this.
Do you think that? I trust your opinion. Do you think small business is the backbone? And I don't mean that like no right side, left side there. I'm what I see is like these service industries. I think that's the backbone. But I will say that it seems like small town retail or like small business retail, I don't know that I'd call that the backbone. Like,
it's a great question. I've gone and tried to think of examples. When you think about McDonald's and then all the big, the food industry in and of itself, and
Tough.
how many jobs, and then in Chillicothe you got PACCAR and Kenworth, and and then of course not meat anymore. I'm not sure what they're called, but the paper mill and Chillicothe. It's,
to me, those are the jobs that are the backbone.
Yeah, I would totally
industry
agree with that.
jobs.
But in order for small business to make it, they're going to have to deregulate some of these constraints, because it literally just chokes the life out of somebody.
Well, I've talked about this on the pod several times, but just here recently, I have Airbnbs, right? And I've since rented them full time, but whenever I had them as Airbnbs, next thing I know, out of the blue, they just decide to impose a 3% tax on them. And it's like, that's a large number. Like, whenever you're dealing in small margin business, and then you go taking a 3%, chunk, that, like that's a huge deal. It's not, I know they look at it like, oh, well, it's only 3%, but yeah. Okay. How much do you really think you have the right to?
Right.
It's like, I don't know. I got very.
But more importantly, what is that tax going for?
Don't get me started on that.
What are those monies going to serve? Right? Is that for the betterment of humanity in some?
It cost them more to figure out how much money they were going to get than what they're going to get.
Right. Exactly.
And that's kind of a proven thing. Like, they were supposed to take it for our parks and recreation, and they thought that was what was going to draw in visitors. Mm-hmm. Industry is what draws in visitors, right? And it was like, so you're going to get $30,000, okay, from the Airbnbs in this county. We're small rural things. Like, how many of them can there be? You're going to draw in 30 to 50,000 maybe. And that's just in Airbnbs. They also have the hotels and stuff. But it's like, what do you think you're going to do with that? Because now, just like you went through, now you're going to have an extra $250,000 worth of cost, because now everything that you do has to be built to municipality spec, and everything else. And it's like, guys, this is just a waste. Like, you're dinging me. At the end of the day, I'm the one that's got to pay it.
Right.
And it's never going to be spent in a useful way.
True. And another thing this has given me great appreciation for, you might look at a business and feel like, oh, they're always busy. They must be killing it. Good for them. The margins are so razor thin.
So slim. That was the biggest eye opener for me whenever I was in the food and beverage world, was just every single penny counted.
Yeah.
Really mind blowing stuff. Like, I was talking with Brad Munn, a good friend of mine. He sponsors a show. He was McDonald's, owned all the McDonald's. He since moved to Georgia, sold his 4 McDonald's here, and bought 6 down in Georgia.
Oh, wow.
And, he always told me that a really good McDonald's operator would make like, I think it was like 11 to 15% maybe. And if you were average, a decent one would make 8 to 13. And if you were really bad and you just kind of didn't really show up and didn't do much, you would make 5%, 3 to 5%. But, depending on your McDonald's, if your McDonald's is doing, $30 million a year, which I'm sure there's several of them do that, if not more, that 3%, it's a big chunk.
That's real money now.
That's real money. Yeah. Yeah. So, it's margins, and are you willing to put things like toilet paper into your P&Ls? That's where a lot of people screw up when they make them, and they make their mock ones. Like, they forget, hey, you got to pay for those rugs. They just don't show up. You got to buy every single thing in that building has a cost associated.
It does. And I'll just give you an example. Like, we have a pro shop. And
how's that going?
It's going pretty well. I mean, if you look at it on paper, it generates a fair amount of revenue, but again, the margin is so slim.
Because you're just reselling, right?
Yeah, we're buying from, brand names, the TaylorMade and Callaways, and Mizuno's of the world.
Did you have to set up like a vendor program with them? Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you a distributor?
I don't know how we'd be considered a distributor. Maybe. I mean, we got a vendor's license, so
Yeah.
I would guess that we are.
How's that going? I mean, that ought to be something that you don't have to just stay right there at the shop with. That's kind of a mobile deal, really, if you wanted to think about it.
Yeah, I guess if they wanted, there'll be some companies that come in. I'll do some demo days, maybe at our range this summer. But we have these structures called fitting carts that's got different shafts, different heads. Most of them are 7 irons. If you want to come try out a set of irons, if you want to try out a driver, they got all different types of driver heads, and we can put them together right there on the spot and let you hit that, fit you, and then we can order one for you. But that's if you want to do custom. With our society, most people would like to be able to come in and just grab one off the shelf. So as a small business, you got to be careful. You can't be the Dick's Sporting Goods of the world and have 400 of those on the shelf waiting to sell them to somebody.
Yeah.
And you got
tying up a lot of money sitting there.
Oh, my word.
And the cost of waiting is high.
And money costs money, right?
Yeah.
You got all that stuff sitting there. It's costing you somewhere. It's either coming out of your pocket or it's out of your line of credit, which is costing you jingle.
That's right. Yeah. That inventory is just eating money. And then you got to factor, though, that you've pretty well until the very end, you're never getting that certain block of that back.
No.
Until it's time to close the doors forever. That's whenever that inventory money comes back to you.
Exactly.
You hope.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's pennies on the dollar then too.
You are constantly chasing it. You're never finished, because by the time you finish or you get into the mid-season, it's already time to start looking at the next season. You got to put up orders. People want their money. These big companies, they want their money up front.
Yep.
They will put you on some term to where you can get the product, but eventually you got to pay the piper.
60 days is 60 days, if they'll let you PO or whatever.
Right. And that's how we do some of it. But that was a big learning experience for me as far as how much it would take for us to run a decent pro shop. Now, but the community, God bless them, they've supported it. We've had a lot of folks come in, from unique customers. We're approaching almost 1,000 unique customers. We've only been open since January 7th, so that's pretty good. You've had
1,000 people through your door.
Mm-hmm. In one shape or form, yeah.
Hey man, that's pretty good.
Not bad. Yeah. But I don't have any experience to golf to know what's good and what not. I think it's good. I've kind of felt like, in the hospital business, an organization will have something called covered lives. And so every organization is trying to cover as many lives as they can, because that's
the metric.
Yep. It's recurring business that, you have to care for, and then you can generate a dollar amount off of that.
There's some residuals is going to come in off of that.
Exactly. And so you can project and do a budget, because these are all projections.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of
How are you figuring that number? Is that just customers in your Square or in your system or Clover, whatever it is you're using?
We have Square, and so I can go in and look at that data. We have another program called Registry Golf that people sign up for to make an appointment with the simulators. And so between that and Square, I can come up with about a round number of about 1,000 people thus far. I've kind of figured that we probably need somewhere between 12 to 15,000 unique customers
a year.
Probably, yeah. And a lot of those are going to be, year over year, they can obviously be repeat, but you got to continually grow that business.
Well, I tell you, that's kind of a great segue into my next topic. I don't know if it's your wife or who it is, but I will say your marketing has been really good, I think. You've been doing some really nice stuff. I don't live in your area. I mean, I'm 50, 60 miles away from you.
Sure.
And, I'm seeing it all the time. So it's like, that's good, right? I mean, yeah. I don't know if that's just because of I like the same stuff you like typically. We share a lot of mutual friends with AP and the boys, but they're sharing it for you and different things. And I think that you have done an incredible job with that, and more so, not even so much your brand, but more of your content. Like that thing you did at Unioto, I think it was with the golf down the court at mid court. That was beautiful. You've been putting your golf carts on there. I mean, that's it's just like, oh wow, they've got all kinds of stuff going on. This isn't just a golf simulator. Like, you're hitting them with everything that you're a part of all the time. I love that. I think that's doing great, man.
It's been an education of itself, right? I mean, I'm 51, going to be 52 this summer, and I am not a social media guru.
So what are you doing? Is this you? Are you the one doing this?
It's a combination between myself, my wife, Kevin and Ty, who do the majority of the work at
McBee?
No, Ty Showblock.
Oh, no.
He's a young man that graduated from Unioda, is going through the PGA program now. He builds clubs, can work on almost anything club related. And then Kevin Schultz is the other PGA fellow that we have, and he does a lot of teaching, especially with youth. So it's a combination of everybody putting forth things. And
so what are you doing? Are you just giving everybody access to a social media account, Facebook, and saying, hey, you're an editor on the page, and post away?
Is exactly what we did. We started with Facebook. That's kind of how we got started, and that's really what it kind of blew up over a period of about 5 days as far as the number of new people we had liking the page and
did it plateau?
It definitely plateaued, but you brought up the thing at Unioda, the putt across the full court.
Yeah.
And the gentleman made it.
And you were moving, by the way, so he made it.
Well, I wasn't there that night. I was working, but Ty,
I thought you were holding a sign.
No, Ty and his dad were there. Now, it's fun. There have been people make comments like that it actually moved. I mean, I can't see it, but I also wear glasses.
Well, I thought it was genius.
The gentleman won a putter, which I was really excited to see. It was crazy that video was viewed by like 350,000 people. It's still getting views.
And don't think for 1 second that you didn't get traffic from that. Like,
I hope so.
You might not see it, okay? But trust me, that did its thing.
I've had this conversation with Jason Prater because I actually made a Facebook reel out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I put it on Instagram. I put it on Facebook Reels. And we're getting people following the Golf Barn in little old Frankfort, Ohio, from Davenport, Iowa, Connecticut, tons out of Michigan. I've had people from California. I had somebody from the UK start following us.
We have listeners from the UK right now from a TikTok video, from one TikTok video 3 years ago.
That's crazy.
Yep. People that we still stay in contact with regularly.
Yeah, it's amazing. I wish I had a better understanding of it, of the social media and kind of what drives it. And for example, like I asked Ty to do
engagement. That's what drives it.
You mean as far as the people just clicking on it?
Well, so, whenever you hear the term engagement, that is, hey, I might not see you as a patient, but once a year, but you and I are talking behind the scenes, you're reaching out to me, we are engaged, right? So you might not see it on, like, you don't see it, but like Facebook and all these social media accounts, they all have their own metric as far as tracking it. So they know, like, as you're scrolling, if that slowed you down. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
They know if that person locked eyes on that thing. Okay. They know if that person scrolled down and then went back up and found it again.
Right.
They know if that person didn't hit a like, but they watched it 3 times. So, I mean, they have a way of knowing all that stuff. So the number one number to pay attention to, in my opinion, is the engagement will tell you if your stuff's working.
I'll come back to a question on that, but I had talked to Ty, one of the guys that works with us, and he builds clubs, he instructs, and I just said, hey, shoot a video, some instructional video, and let's post it. And so he did a phenomenal job. It was like 1 minute and 21 seconds long. Well, I go in later on, like 3 weeks later, and I'm looking at all the engagement from that video. And to your point, Facebook will send you metrics. The average time somebody spent watching that was 15 seconds.
Yeah.
The longest.
That's good.
Yeah. And, the whole minute 21, there was a certain percentage, but it was probably less than 7% of everybody that had viewed it. So there is a sweet spot there trying to dial that in. And that's what I'm talking about. I wish I could understand more, because those algorithms are amazing as far as grabbing
and they
engagement.
change.
Yeah.
So like, you'll find, so that, you saw it, right? So you see exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And, for example, in the beginning, and I'd say maybe even whenever your first pod that you came in, we probably broke that thing down into two sections. You had Bill Sever 1, Bill Sever 2, right?
Yeah.
And that was because we were trying to fit ourselves in a sweet spot. Now we just kind of quit doing that because it was like, okay, it's not working. We don't think that's working as well. But, we were used to do 2-hour pods. Okay. Well, and we were really good. Like whenever we were doing 2 hours, our average watch time was like 39 minutes. Okay. So it was like, okay, well, we know we're good, right? Because they're watching for 39 minutes, but like nobody was listening to the full show. Okay. So it's like, okay, so we brought it down to an hour, right? So then we see, okay, now we've went to an hour, now it's 20 some minutes. So it's like, it's almost like, you kind of play that game, and you're seeing that like with your 15 seconds. So, the marketing guy in me says, okay, well, if they're watching 15 seconds, let's give them a 15-second video. And what you'll find is now you'll go back and 80% of them watched it for 7 seconds.
Yeah, right.
And it's just this constant game that you're constantly playing on. But can you imagine if you had a 15, 20-second video and 100% of them watched a 15 to 20-second video? Then you see what the algorithm will do. You're doing good on, so many of them watching 15 seconds. Imagine if 100% of them watched all of it, then Facebook just throws it out there to everybody.
Right. I think I looked at it, I don't know if it was the day or yesterday, but overall, since we started the Facebook page, which was back in August of 24, we've had 379,000 engagements through our Facebook page. So
that's great.
Yeah, I don't have a benchmark, and that was going to be my question. It's what's the benchmark? How do you know that's good or that's great? To me, you've always got to have a metric that you're chasing.
My opinion is they're going to let you ride here for about probably a quarter, and you're probably right there about now, and I think they're going to see that you're a business. And in my opinion, if you don't start spending, I don't care if it's $1, but if you don't start spending something with them, I think you just hit a plateau. You see, even us, what I mean? We still get views, we still get streams. I mean, we've never really, we've taken some breaks here and there, but we've been at it now for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And you'll be in like probably the 200. I think you're the 201st or 2nd episode. Okay, so that's a lot of episodes,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And we've had 2,000 Facebook followers or whatever for 4 years. And it's like, and we've had several videos get 12,000, 30,000 views, on there, like reels, several of those. Chad's got a couple of them in the millions. Didn't really grow it. Now, where we saw the most is TikTok.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I tell you something else we've realized too, and I don't know if you've realized this yet. Now, you haven't really done it, but anything that I actually took a class on this one time. Okay. They are competing for your screen time. Whenever I say they are competing, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, throw Apple in there, TikTok, Instagram, Lemonade, Google, Bing, any of these huge, what would you call those?
Media outlets
/ search engines.
Yep.
They are all competing for your time, because the more time that they can show that you've spent on their site, the more their sponsor dollars or advertiser money goes up. So where we kind of have a different approach, and it's not a good one, right? But we've learned from this. We share our YouTube videos on Facebook. Well, you got to realize that's never going to really go out, because you're taking somebody from one of those platforms to the other, to their competitor
entities, right?
Yeah. So keep that in mind, that, like we've learned to build things for Facebook. We've learned to build things for TikTok. Like where do we want to face our time? It's like why you're live on TikTok, right? We love TikTok. TikTok's where we see our biggest bang for our buck. Now,
And I'm not on TikTok right now. And again,
you're local.
It comes to my understanding of the media and how do you get there, the Instagram. I mean, I still struggle on Instagram just trying to make posts, it's just not intuitive to me. Like the Apple phone, I feel like it's very intuitive to use. And for these social medias, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the platform. It's just that I'm old.
Well, hey, don't get it twisted. I mean, I'm living it, brother. I mean, it takes a lot of time to sit there and post on everything.
Yes.
I mean, if you do it like, I try to get mine done in the mornings, but I've learned AI is great. AI will do a lot of that stuff for you. We can talk about that after the show. I can show you some stuff that might help as far as
I would love that.
Yeah, stuff that you can gather content with.
Yes.
And, that way it's just there and it's just a matter of
and what content do people want to see?
Well,
right. I mean, I've had some the real people that are kind of golf nerds that really live it. They would come and tell me, man, I really enjoyed that video Ty put up. But to the common, just recreational golfer, I mean, some of them may look at it that are just trying to get a little better, but most of the time it's silliness. People are just looking for a good laugh or, what kind of grabs their attention.
I'm sure who was that guy? I heard him speak too. It's that, you've heard him. Gary V.
I don't know if I've heard him.
It's Gary V.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it's not Gary Breckham. I hope I'm not replacing Gary's here, but Gary V is the guy that he's like, if he's one of those motivational money guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke at something I was at a couple of years ago in Texas. And he said, look at your competitors, all these big fast food chains. What do you see? He said, they got social media. And he said, what are you putting on your social media? He goes, you're effing food. And he said, look at the big boys. They're not sharing pictures of their food. They're talking about everything else and getting you engaged. And I thought, man, that's genius, because he's right. Every restaurant gets in there and think that they're going to put a picture of their food on there and they're going to have a club line out the front, And it's like, that's not what draws them in. It's like with you, you're not going to be able to put a picture of balls on there for $9.99 and think that people are just going to come.
Yeah, I know.
They're going to have to get to know you. Now they can that's what they do, right? I mean, they look at you on social media, and if they like you, they'll come. It's great to reach out with your audience. I mean, I think your pro shop could just kill it online.
Really?
Well, yeah. Why wouldn't you? You could ship.
No, well, absolutely. Yeah, and we do ship clubs. I guess it just comes down to the expertise about how do you market that particular.
You got a simulator.
Yeah.
You go show them.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, have random people. You could just have random people. Hey, we're going to do club tryout days and we're going to film it. Come on.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, just all that stuff's great stuff, man. People would love that, I think. But you'll figure all this out, man. You'll figure all this out. Our company, that company I'm with now, we're paying a firm. And I've been working with them just on keywords and search engines and stuff. And
right.
I mean, that's a whole nother, how your phone listens to you.
Yes.
That's what we're doing. And I mean, it's freaky. It's nuts.
Yeah, I know. I mean, my wife and I have had this conversation. We'll talk about a product, and as soon as she flips on Facebook, there it is, an advertisement.
That's your phone, right?
Yeah,
so that's your phone listening to you. And then there's companies that have software that will put things in front of you. There's engines behind that. Okay. So that data is collected through a series of things in your phone, and then it's kind of dispersed out into kind of your phone's own built-in, I don't want to call it a cloud, but back to Apple. Okay. And then they're able to trace certain things like hot zones and let's say you could probably buy the word golf. I doubt you could, but you could say hitting barn or, whatever you want to call it, right? Golf barn, you could buy those keywords, and then you would buy the market. So you would say, okay, I'd like to capture 50% of the market. Okay. And I want to do it in these area codes. So then every time somebody's talking about golf, or they would go online and search, golf simulators, that's how you jump up in those sponsored things, and that's how you're like a click away.
Interesting.
And what they do is like if they hear you talking about it, the next thing you know, your Facebook, you know, it's hearing you. Okay. And it's putting golf stuff in there. So, you know, some other company might have bought the Google rights. So they're the ones, whenever you go to Google's going to pop up. Well, there's people that buy the Facebook stuff too, and they'll just run those ads on Facebook.
Interesting.
So I can tell you more about that company. It's a local company that does it. Not local, but like they're in Ohio. And killer results.
I mean, right now we're trying to figure out how to market our golf carts.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really one of the probably under 3 dealers between Columbus and the river, all the way to Cincinnati to West Virginia.
I agree. You got any service aspect to them?
There's not a whole lot. I mean, it's pretty easy. I mean, we would be able to service almost anything that would go wrong. Most of the parts just pop off. You know, you may need, if you need to order something.
But I mean, are you taking trade-ins?
Oh yeah, we take trade-ins for sure. We have financing through Sheffield, so and there's some really good rates. I mean, you can get 0% financing for 2 years. Yeah, I mean, because they are pricey, and most people can't, you know, come in and plop down anywhere from $12,000 to $16,000 for a golf cart.
Yeah,
I mean, some people do, but
these electric.
Yeah, they're electric. They're lithium-ion batteries. Range on them is about 35 miles. I mean, you could run the thing all day long. And, you know, plug it in at night, it's fully charged the next day. Super, really, really nice. Got infotainment centers in them with, you know, the Apple CarPlay, sound bars. I mean, they you know, the seats are super nice. They'll run up to 25 miles an hour.
Okay.
I mean, if you live in a urban area, neighborhoods, in town, especially, you know, spring, summer, fall, really choice to, you know, cruise around on.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a side by side, but my wife keeps wanting me to get a golf cart. She doesn't like to drive the side by side because it's hard to get in and out of gear and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well, send me your wife's number. I know a guy.
Yeah. She keeps wanting me to do it. And I'm like, listen, you'd have that thing buried about the first time you went out in the pasture. I ain't pulling out no golf cart. You know?
They're lifted.
Are they? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Off-road tires, my friend.
Oh. You stay away from my wife. That's about the last thing I need right now. Of course, I say that. I would kind of like to have one. I definitely want to get up there. You know, that's what's cool about those simulators.
Yeah.
I'm not a golfer, right? I mean, you know, I love to mountain bike and I love being outside, but like golf's one of those things that I used to dearly love. I did. I was addicted to it. And something happened one day where I just got tired of it. I don't know what it was. I just and I'm good now for 9. You know, but after 9, I don't want any more of it. You know, and that was what was always hard for me about golf. It's a 6-hour sport, right? It's a 4-hour sport to go play 18. It's just such a long commitment. You know, you got to give up your day. But what you've got is a little bit different because you don't. You know, you can still go get your practice in.
Yep.
You know. And that's, if you don't have fun practicing, don't do it.
Exactly. Yeah, you can come up, head inside, and of course with our range, you know, one of the things I love to do, I would consider myself still a recreational golfer. Obviously, I'm trying to get better as I practice and play, but I love going to a range, and just especially if you got the place to yourself.
Yeah.
You just hit ball after ball after ball, especially, you know, nice summer evening. That's one cool thing about a range. We're gonna have a lighted range.
Oh yeah.
So
those are cool.
Yeah. And maybe based on how things are going, our goal is to try to put propane heat in this fall.
Yeah.
So, you know, people come in the wintertime, they be able to stand there in a little bit of heat if they still want to hit in the wintertime.
Yeah. You know, that can come. You know, that can come at any time. You know, I mean, make sure you got your people first.
Well, that's why I said we got to see how things go.
Yeah.
You know, got to see what revenues are like.
I'm excited for you. I think it could be a great thing. I mean, you know, I think it'll be it's a great asset for Ross County. You're the only one, right?
Well, there's JC's, there's the VA, and then
talking
of
about
course,
golf ranges.
Well, there's no range at the VA. JC's got a range, and then the only other range in Ross County is at the country club, but you have to be a member. So outside of JC's and us, there are no other ranges in
Jackson doesn't have one.
Really?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Franklin Valley's got one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you know, I know guys that in the wintertime just love to go hit balls on Saturday. Ain't nothing
Right.
else to do. There's a group of guys I work with, and every Saturday they go somewhere. They're from like the McConnellsville, Marietta style area over there. We work in Athens, so.
And one of the few places in Columbus is actually in Westerville. And, that's on the north side of town. We drove up there to look at their facility. Really nice. But it might have been in December, maybe. It might have been November, December. Miserable day. Raining, 9 o'clock. Parking lot was full. Covered.
Yeah.
People just kept walking in to hit pound balls.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Why not? What else is there to do on a rainy Saturday in
That's
Ohio?
right, yeah. Well, how can they find you?
They can go to our website, which is thegolf-barn.com.
Thegolf-barn.com.
Yep. They can go to our Facebook page, The Golf Barn. And we have an Instagram page, which is thegolf.barn.
Okay. Phone number? Call?
It is 740-889-GOLF.
740-88. Oh, I like that.
4653.
Yeah, just golf. 489 golf.
889 golf. Yeah.
Yeah. You think you'll get more website traffic or phone calls? You think?
I think it's definitely website traffic.
Yeah.
The Facebook Messenger is popular. We get, like I said, we're still acquiring followers. I mean, we're almost at 3K followers, which is cool.
Yeah. Are you going to have a metric goal for that? You're going to say like, okay, by Q2, I'd like to have.
It's funny because there's another guy, the small business, that he and I have chatted a lot about this, and he thinks it's most important for the Instagram, and it needs to be at 5,000 or more. And so we're trying to grow our Instagram presence. It gets into the small videos and quick and
reels and
yes,
yeah.
So we got some work to do on the social media.
So go follow his Instagram, golf.barn.
The golf.
Barn. Okay.
Yeah.
So go follow his Instagram. You got anything else, brother?
Nope. I appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem. Round two.
Enjoy the T-shirt.
Yes, and thank you for the T-shirts.
You're
yes,
welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I hope this one gets more views than my last one. I went and looked on the way down.
What did you look at? YouTube?
YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we get probably 60 to 70% of our stuff on Spotify.
Okay.
You got to figure most people that listen to podcasts are listening to them on Apple or Spotify because YouTube, you kind of have to watch.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's more of like your TV watchers.
Yeah.
Where if you're listening to it back and forth to work or in your earbuds and it's in your pocket, because YouTube, you can't really shut your phone off unless you pay for that premium.
I didn't realize that.
So Spotify, they'll just hit play and go. So they might not watch it, but they listen to it.
All right, I'll have to go check that out then.
All right, thank you. You gonna come on again? I want you to bring you on in a year and let's see where it's at.
That'd be great.
All right.
I'd love to come down.
All right.
Appreciate it, Pudge.
Thanks, man. See
All
you,
right,
bud.
see you.